He was a prince who inherited a kingdom, a student of Aristotle, and a military genius who never lost a battle. In just over a decade, he carved out one of the largest empires the ancient world had ever seen, stretching from Greece to northwestern India. This is the story of Alexander the Great, a man whose ambition knew no bounds and whose legacy echoes through millennia. Born in 356 BC in Pella, the capital of Macedon, Alexander was the son of King Philip II and Queen Olympias. From an early age, he was groomed for greatness. His father, Philip, was a formidable military strategist who had transformed Macedon from a peripheral backwater into a dominant power in Greece. But it was his mother, Olympias, who instilled in him the belief that he was descended from heroes and gods, particularly Achilles. This divine heritage would fuel his insatiable drive for glory. At the age of 13, Alexander's education was entrusted to one of the greatest minds in history, the philosopher Aristotle. For 3 years, Aristotle tutored the young prince in rhetoric, literature, science, and philosophy. He ignited Alexander's passion for knowledge and his fascination with the world beyond Greece. He also gifted him an annotated copy of Homer's Iliad, which Alexander reportedly kept under his pillow alongside his dagger. The epic tale of heroes and conquest became his personal blueprint. But Alexander's youth was not just one of study. He was also trained in the art of war, learning horsemanship and combat skills. At just 16, while his father was away on campaign, Alexander was left in charge of Macedon. He quickly proved his mettle, crushing a Thracian revolt and founding a new city, Alexandropolis. 2 years later, at the decisive Battle of Charonia, the 18-year-old prince commanded the Macedonian cavalry, shattering the elite Theban sacred band and securing his father's victory over the combined forces of Athens and Thebes. Macedon was now the undisputed master of Greece. King Philip had a grander vision, to lead a unified Greek army against the vast and wealthy Persian Empire, their age-old enemy. But he would never see it realized. In 336 BC, Philip was assassinated, and at the age of 20, Alexander ascended to the throne. His succession was anything but smooth. Rivals emerged, and Greek city-states like Thebes rebelled, thinking the young king was weak. Alexander responded with terrifying speed and brutality. He marched his army south and razed Thebes to the ground, selling its population into slavery. The message was clear: defiance would not be tolerated. With Greece firmly under his control, Alexander turned his attention to his father's dream, the conquest of Persia. In the spring of 334 BC, he crossed the Hellespont into Asia Minor with an army of around 48,000 men. He was embarking on one of the most audacious military campaigns in history, facing an empire that dwarfed his own in size, wealth, and manpower. His first major test came at the Granicus River. Outnumbered, Alexander led a daring cavalry charge directly across the river and into the heart of the Persian defenses. His personal courage was on full display as he fought in the front lines, nearly losing his life. The audacious tactic worked. The Persian line broke, and Western Asia Minor fell into his hands. As he marched south, Alexander employed a mix of military force and clever diplomacy. He presented himself not as a conqueror, but as a liberator of the Greek cities in Ionia from Persian rule. He famously visited the city of Gordium, where he was confronted with the legendary Gordian knot. An oracle had prophesied that whoever could untie the intricate knot would rule all of Asia. Instead of trying to unravel it, Alexander simply drew his sword and sliced it in half. It was a powerful symbol of his approach, to cut through old problems with bold, decisive action. The Persian king, Darius III, finally met Alexander on the battlefield at Issus in 333 BC. Again, Alexander was outnumbered, but his superior tactics won the day. He identified a weakness in the Persian line and led his elite companion cavalry in a decisive charge straight at Darius himself. The Persian king, terrified, fled the battlefield, leaving his army to collapse and his own family, his mother, wife, and daughters to be captured by Alexander. In a gesture of magnanimity, Alexander treated them with the utmost respect, a move that earned him admiration even among his enemies. Instead of pursuing Darius into the heart of Persia, Alexander made a strategic move to secure the Mediterranean coast. He besieged the island fortress of Tyre for 7 months, a masterpiece of ancient engineering and siege warfare. He built a massive causeway to the island, eventually breaching its walls and conquering the seemingly impregnable city. Next, he marched into Egypt, which welcomed him as a liberator from Persian rule. The Egyptian priests declared him a son of the god Ammon, effectively recognizing him as a divine pharaoh. It was here, at the mouth of the Nile, that he founded the most famous of the many cities that would bear his name, Alexandria. With his rear secure, Alexander was ready for the final confrontation with Darius. In 331 BC, the two armies met at Gaugamela, on a wide plain in modern-day Iraq. Darius had assembled a massive army, by some accounts numbering over 250,000 men, complete with Scythe chariots and war elephants. Alexander's forces were less than a fifth of that size. What followed was a tactical masterclass. Alexander drew the Persian cavalry out to the flanks, creating a gap in their center. Once again, he led the charge directly at Darius. And once again, Darius fled. The battle was a resounding victory for the Macedonians. The Persian Empire was effectively broken. Alexander marched unopposed into the great cities of Babylon and Susa, seizing their immense treasuries. He then moved on to Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of Persia. In a controversial act, he burned the magnificent palace complex to the ground. Was it revenge for the Persian burning of Athens a century and a half earlier, a drunken mistake, or a calculated political statement that the Persian dynasty was truly over? Historians still debate the motive. With Darius dead murdered by one of his own satraps, Alexander declared himself the new king of Asia. But he wasn't finished. His ambition, his pothos, a Greek word for a powerful yearning, drove him ever eastward. He pushed into the unknown territories of Central Asia, facing brutal guerrilla warfare in regions like Bactria and Sogdia. It was here that he married Roxana, the daughter of a local chieftain, in a political move to pacify the region and begin his policy of fusing Greek and Persian cultures. This policy of fusion was controversial. Alexander began adopting Persian dress and court customs, like proskynesis, the act of prostrating oneself before the king. To his Macedonian veterans, who saw themselves as conquerors, not equals to the Persians, this was an outrage. Tensions grew within his army. His lifelong friend, Cletus the Black, who had saved his life at Granicus, openly criticized him during a drunken argument. In a fit of rage, Alexander killed him. He was immediately consumed by remorse, but the incident revealed the immense pressure he was under and the growing gulf between him and his men. Despite the internal strife, Alexander's gaze was fixed on the next horizon, India. In 326 BC, he crossed the Indus River, entering a land of powerful kingdoms and fearsome war elephants. At the Battle of the Hydaspes River, he faced King Porus and his elephant corps. In one of his most brilliant and costly victories, Alexander managed to outmaneuver and defeat the Indian army. Impressed by Porus's bravery, Alexander allowed him to keep his kingdom, making him an ally. He wanted to press onto the Ganges River, to the very edge of the world as he knew it. But his army, exhausted and homesick after 8 years of relentless campaigning, finally refused to go any further. For the first time, Alexander had to bow to the will of his men. He reluctantly agreed to turn back. The return journey was a disaster. He split his forces, leading one contingent himself through the treacherous Jadrajan desert. Thousands died from heat and thirst in one of the greatest logistical failures of his career. Finally, back in Babylon in 323 BC, Alexander began planning his next campaigns, an invasion of Arabia, and perhaps a circumnavigation of Africa. He was also working to consolidate his vast, multicultural empire. But these plans would never be realized. After a prolonged bout of drinking and feasting, he fell ill with a fever. For 10 days, his condition worsened until he was unable to speak. On his deathbed, when his generals asked him to whom he left his empire, he reputedly whispered, "To the strongest." On June 10th, 323 BC, Alexander the Great died, just shy of his 33rd birthday. His death plunged the empire into chaos. His generals, the Diadochi, immediately began fighting over the spoils. The vast territory he had conquered was torn apart in nearly half a century of war, eventually fracturing into several Hellenistic kingdoms. So what is Alexander's legacy? Was he a brilliant, visionary leader who sought to unite East and West, or a ruthless tyrant driven by an insatiable lust for power? The truth is likely somewhere in between. His military strategies are still studied in military academies today. His conquests shattered the old world order and ushered in the Hellenistic Age, a period where Greek culture, language, and ideas spread across a vast area, blending with local traditions and creating a vibrant new civilization. The cities he founded, especially Alexandria, Egypt, became major centers of learning and culture for centuries. In just 13 years, Alexander the Great redrew the map of the known world. He was a force of nature, a man whose ambition and vision were matched only by his ability to achieve them. His life was a short, brilliant flame that illuminated the world and then vanished, leaving behind a legacy that continues to fascinate, inspire, and provoke us to this day. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the life of one of history's most compelling figures, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the past. See you next time.